Hello everyone, Kevin Gooch here. Thank you for your time today. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the work of the 100 Black Men of Atlanta, Inc. We are a 34-year-old organization that focuses on mentoring and making a difference in the community. We are a volunteer-led member organization with a roster that begins with Hammer and Hank Aaron and ends with Ambassador Young. And we have a lot of legends and titans of industry in between. And the common theme amongst these men is that we all came together to lock arms and truly make a difference to impact our community through mentoring, because what they see is what they will be. We appreciate all of the support that we've received throughout the years and in 2020. But unfortunately, we've had to cancel 3 of our biggest fundraisers for the year. That would be our 100 Honors, the Celebration Bowl, and Divots and Divas. And so as an organization, we need your help. We need more help. If you want us to continue to provide the programming that we've been delivering to our young people, if you want us to continue to deliver on that promise that we've made to positively impact the community by making a difference in the lives of the young people in these communities that are often left behind, these vulnerable young people, please support our organization. You can go to our website, you can make a donation there. You can connect with our members, you can call our office, and we will be happy to have you in the fold with us, supporting us, investing in us, so that we can do the same for the young people that we serve in this community that we serve. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our latest installment of Let's Talk Leadership today. For those that have been along this journey with us, you know that these sessions are an opportunity to talk to some of our community leaders, friends of the 100, and members of the 100 about their leadership journey. And it's just another way that we mentor our young people and our young professionals that are embarking on their leadership journey. These sessions are brought to you by the 100 Black Men of Atlanta, Inc., a 35-year organization focused on mentoring and tutoring young people in the Atlanta community. And we do a lot of work at Best Academy High School. We provide tuition assistance to deserving young students. We expose young people to STEM-related fields. And we also help young people matriculate through high school, college, and get them ready for the workforce through our career readiness program, which is our career pipeline program. So we do a lot of great work in the community, and this is just an extension of some of that work to, again, help our young people, our students, high school and college students, as well as our young professionals, navigate their leadership journeys. Today we have with us Brother Mitch Robinson, and I am very excited about today's discussion, because Mitch is a dear friend. I call him one of my mentees, and I've seen him develop into an amazing leader, and he's just an all-around amazing brother. So you're in for a treat today. So I will read Mitch's bio, and then we will jump into the discussion and talk a little bit about leadership. So Mitch Robinson is a business and trial attorney focusing his practice on labor and employment and commercial litigation matters. His litigation experience includes defending and counseling employers with respect to single plaintiff, collective action, and class action cases involving wage and hour claims, employment discrimination, sexual harassment, government investigations, and common law tort and contract cases. So I'm sure he's been busy. He also has wide-ranging experience representing employers in restrictive covenant litigation in both state and federal court, including lawsuits involving breaches of employers' confidentiality, solicitation, and non-compete covenants and trade secrets. In addition to his litigation experience, Mitch represents and counsels public and private entities and senior executives in the negotiation and drafting of agreements, including executive employment, severance and releases, change in control, and retention and bonus agreements. He also routinely assists clients with the development and implementation of policy and practices by drafting employee handbooks and related policies, protocols, and guidance, conducting trainings and employment audits, and designing employment compliance programs. Prior to entering private practice, Mitch served as a law clerk for the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Georgia. He also worked as a legislative assistant in the U.S. House of Representatives, where he advised on and was involved in various subject matter areas involving energy, education, housing, federal budget, immigration, and appropriations. Mitch is a graduate of Northwestern's Law School, and he began his career at Alston and Bird, where he came in as a summer associate, and I was his summer mentor, and we continue to develop our relationship. So we go back to, what is that, Mitch, 2014, 2015?
Close to a decade, man. I was thinking about it the other day. I mean, it's crazy. I mean,
and that's on the professional side, and on the community service side, Mitch is the president of the Emerging 100 of Atlanta, and he is wrapping up his 2-year term. He's done some great work as a president, and it has been an honor and a privilege to work with him together as we both ascended to leadership of this great organization. And the organization will benefit from his leadership for years to come. So we thank him for his service to the community.
Amen.
And again, I call him a dear friend, one of my mentees, and very proud to see all the great work that he's doing. Mitch, you ready to have this discussion?
Yeah, let's have a conversation. I told you, I just want to have a regular conversation like we would have and have been having for close to a decade now, man. So shoot.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit of leadership, sir.
Yep.
So tell us about your current role as an associate at BakerHostetler. We talked about your practice area, but how did you end up here at BakerHostetler in this practice area?
So I've been practicing now for 8 years. I mean, I've been practicing law, moving forward with the law. And like I said before, I was a summer associate, and Brother Gooch was my mentor then and still remains my mentor. I always had an attraction to the litigation side of the law. So what litigation means, for those that aren't familiar with the law, is I like to handle disputes, problems for companies. I like to problem solve. And so that's what I do on a regular basis. And very happy to be here at BakerHostetler, a firm with close to 1,000 attorneys, full service firm. So we do everything. It's just a really great spot for me. So I'm really excited. I love what I do. I love being able to get up and advocate for a client or a position and really consult. So I have clients that maybe I don't work for in a direct litigation capacity, but I serve as a confidant and as a friend and make sure that they get the services they need as well. So I love what I do. And Kevin, I'm sure we're going to talk about the process there because you were instrumental in, and I think this is the big thing. The second part of that question is, how did I get there? And so what I will tell you is I've learned that your best mentors are those that sort of tell you the good sides and the bad sides of their path and their career. And there was one day very early on in my career as a young attorney, and I think it's very easy in any career to get lost in the vision of what you have rather than the process. And we were driving back from Best Academy at the time, and this is how far back Kevin and I go. He was the president of the Emerging 100. And we were driving to Best Academy on a service day. I was stressed out because some partner had hit me 3 times on my phone, and I'm worried about, oh man, I don't know if in 10 years from now I'm going to have a career, X, Y, and Z. And I remember you, Kevin, saying, listen, man, you just got to let go and just chill out. Just enjoy what you're doing. Just focus on the day-to-day. And that's basically when I started to understand that, is that you give your all each day. You don't focus on sort of 20 years from now, but you just give your all. That, lesson that you sort of imbibed on me and other people has really helped me. because this practice is hard, it's stressful. We all are carrying pressures with family and the like. And if you don't focus on trying to be your best that day, you frankly never will because you're so distracted. And so that's how I got here. That's what I'm trying to do every day now. It's just lock in, try to do my best, get better.
Win the day, man. Win the day.
Yep. Yep.
And those wins start to accumulate. Well, tell us about your time with the Emerging 100 and what is it like serving as the president of the Emerging 100, following some of the greatest leaders in the history of the city in that role?
So I don't know who you're talking about, but I will tell you it. So I've been part of the Emerging 100. In fact, I was actually in Chicago, and I got a call from a brother named Kevin Gooch saying, "Hey, man, I'm about to be president of this organization, the Emerging 100. I think you should look at it and think about it." And so I applied, but that was 2013. You know, I got a 5-year-old daughter now, Kevin. At that time, having a child, much less having anything like that, wasn't on my mind fully yet. And so I've grown as part of this organization. The Emerging 100 is the auxiliary, obviously, of the 100 Black Men, which you're chair of. And we do service work, but we also try to uplift young African-American men who are successful in their careers between the ages of 25 and 35. And I can say that this organization has helped me because without it, who knows where I would be? I mean, I have some of my best mentors, some of my best friends. We developed a lot of our relationship through that. So it's been great. But now I'm on the other side of it. You know, when I joined, Kevin, you and others were the what we would call the old heads that I would ask for wisdom and guidance. And now I find myself getting that same label. But I enjoy it because I think that iron sharpens iron. I think we have a responsibility to the students that we mentor to do that, man. So I love it. I love the service work we do. We impact an entire school system, families. A lot of the brothers that we serve, just at Best Academy alone, have no male figures in their life that are consistent. And so the main thing that I try to push is let's be consistent. Because even if we do a small thing consistently, that's teaching a lesson that a lot of these brothers haven't seen, and it's going to help them throughout.
So we talked a little bit about your professional career and then your time with the Emerging 100. And for those that don't know, Mitch is our lawyer. We call him when we have legal issues, and he makes sure they get handled over at BakerHostetler. And he leverages his expertise to help our organization. So how do you balance, like, what is a day in the life of Mitch Robinson like as you're balancing your practice at the highest level of the legal profession, as well as leading a group of incredible brothers that are trying to make a difference in the community and that, you know, have been successful and that they have sort of, you know, egos, not in a bad way, but it's just managing those two things at once. What's a day like doing that?
So you had Ernest Greer on here a while ago, maybe like a month ago. And what he told me is, he said the word balance is, I mean, creating balance is difficult. You just make it happen. You make a commitment to something. So what I try to do is, if I make a commitment to something, I'm going to give you 100. It's either 0 or 100. I don't want to be anywhere in between. And so a normal day starts like this. I get up. My daughter has to be at school, so I'm up before that. I make it a point. I like to drop my daughter off at school every day. That's the one thing that I say I got to do. So I drop my daughter off at school, and then I'm on the work. And in between the work, you'll get pinged on something that's related to the Emerging. You get pinged on something, and Kevin knows this, is related to the 100 Black Men, or you get pinged on something that's related to other things you're involved in, and you give it the time that you have. Something that I've sort of taken on, Kevin, that has really helped me is I visualize my day at the start of it. So like when I get up, I write down blocks of time for things that I know I have to get done. And then I leave myself little windows for things that come up. And you know the fire drills very well. I've seen how you handled it as chair for those fire drills, because rarely are they true fire drills. But I leave open windows where I can deal with those. And so that's something that's really helped me. I try to just make sure that I maintain, I wouldn't call it balance, but I try to maintain some sort of schedule and prioritization of my day.
So I think I know the answer to this, but what do you enjoy the most about your day-to-day life?
Oh, you already know, man. It is when I come home and when I drop Sophia off, my daughter. That is for me the I can have a horrible day, man. But when you got a 5-year-old that runs up to you and does not care and it's like, nah, you're about to play for 20 minutes, that's the highlight. I mean, because it puts it all in perspective. None of us are working just to work, right? We're working for something. That's a large part of why I do what I do, is because I want to, same way, frankly, people have for me, give her something better.
So what's the most rewarding part of your time with the Emerging 100 as it sort of winds down?
Oh man, that is a hard one. So it's changed. There are two or three things. The first is obviously, when you're mentoring a kid and that kid goes to you and you see how successful they are, you're like, man, that I've done something there. I've helped them in a little way. That's one. But the other thing for me that's been really big is trying to put forward a culture. There are things as Black males that we don't talk about. And it was important to me to really focus on that culture. We don't talk about mental health. We don't talk about navigating the professional with the personal. We don't talk about how do I make you better in the relationships that I think matter, that go beyond where you make your money. And I'm just happy because I would like to believe that when my administration is done, and it turns it over to the next administration, which I think is going to do great work, that we have created a culture now where we are focused on a mission, which is serving young Black women and men who are underserved here in the city of Atlanta. But we're focused on that mission with an understanding that this is bigger than any one of us, and we have an obligation to help each other as we ascend, hopefully, to higher heights.
Okay. Well, you mentioned our role as mentors and the importance of mentoring for our organization. So what role did, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier, what role did mentors play in your professional journey? And then for the audience, how did you get the most out of those mentoring relationships? Because I think that's important. A lot of people, you throw the term mentor around and people don't really know what that means. And then they don't know how you leverage those relationships and really lean in to get the most out of them. So what role did mentors play? And then how did you get the most out of those relationships?
Still play. I mean, so I've been blessed to have a ton of mentors, but all of them have been intentional. Kevin, Ernest, Judge Sands. I have a ton of people that I consider friends that are mentors, but I have to invest in that relationship. And this sort of goes to your second part. And we've talked about this. Everybody says, hey, man, I need a mentor. I need somebody that I can reach out to. Well, if you want to have a Kevin Gucci as a mentor, you have to try to build a relationship. You have to let them know who you are as a person, because I don't think anybody's going to invest. I can only speak for myself. We are all busy. If I'm investing in you and giving them my time in a real significant way and growing a mentorship relationship, then I have to trust the person you are above everything else. And so, I always say when people say, man, I don't have mentors, either one or two things are happening. You're not in the right space and you need to reevaluate what your space is. And what I mean by that is not a job or not a position, but maybe you haven't created an environment where you can actually get contact with those mentors. So you need to think about your environment. And then the second piece is, are you actually opening your mouth and asking a real question of value, or are you just saying, I want the mentor because I want to get somewhere? Because it's a relationship. I don't know anybody from the time, you know this, man. There's no person on the face of the earth that wants to feel like the only time they get a call is when somebody needs something. Mm-hmm. You want to hear the good stuff too, right? You want to hear, hey, Kevin, as I've done with you, hey, Kevin, man, I got this clerkship, or hey, Kevin, I'm thinking about this. What do you think about this? You want to be part of that win too. And I think a lot of times where I've seen relationships fail is it's always about the need. It's never about the shared win. And so, my thing is, and this is why I think, earlier you said, and I appreciate it, that we've done good work in the emerging. I think you've done great work in the 100, but I think part of that is because we had a personal relationship and there were shared interest and value. And I just think that, no matter where you are, you can create that. Doc Price, who is a mentor of mine in the 100, and that's one of the things I should say is that at its best, the 100 Black men is to serve as mentors to the emerging 100. We go hit golf balls poorly every weekend, but that's something we do that's outside of the career stuff, and it's focused on family and building as men, and building as friends, and I think that's important. But but I gotta show up, and he's got to show up. It can't be one way.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize what you said, man, and that is the importance of relationship first, right? Like there are a lot of people that are like, I want a mentor, I want a mentor, I want a mentor, and it's like you're sort of going into the situation trying to get something out of it, as opposed to let's build a relationship with someone that I admire, and then the rest will fall into place.
Right, right. Look at somebody that you say, you know what, I respect them because of the way, when I got done clerking, and I was looking at firms that I wanted to go to, and I remember we had this conversation. One of the big things that I looked at was who do I think I can, just from observing, even if they don't talk to me one day, just from observing, I can build and grow. And so that's one of the reasons why I went to Greenberg, is because I saw Ernest Greer or David Long Daniels or Natasha Wilson. I saw people that looked like me, that were thriving in their careers, but more importantly, were involved in the community, were, family focused. The reason I'm a BakerHostetler in large part is because of Eric Barnum. I've always followed the philosophy you should want to be around and be in rooms with people that you think are good people. Because there's a lot of good people in their careers that aren't good people. And then you got to work at it. You should never go in saying, man, I just want him to mentor me so I can get here.
So as a young person, Mitch, did you know that you wanted to be a lawyer, and were you intentional about being a lawyer, or did it just sort of happen with you going with the flow?
So what happened was I did not. So when I was an undergrad, I thought for sure I was going to work in government. And so my sophomore and my junior year, there was this, at the time, this young brother who was thinking about running for governor, who was in Massachusetts, who had just left Coca-Cola, and he had 5% name recognition, Deval Patrick. And so a friend told me, hey man, this brother in Massachusetts is thinking about running for governor. And so I went and worked on his campaign. I was going to school and working on his campaign. I thought that's what I was going to do campaigns, go to the Hill, work on policy stuff, and do that. It started sort of with Governor Patrick, because I used to be in that office far too long. And I think my mother will thank him. There were days where he'd be like, you need to get out the office. And he would drop me off as he left the office to go. He'd be like, you need to go study. And a lot of people wouldn't have done that, but he literally dropped me off the campus. And so then I started to see, oh man, like he's a lawyer. He's got all these opportunities. He now has options later in his life to do what he wants to do, right? So I started thinking about the law there. I went and worked for now Senator DeMarkey, and I did policy work. I did appropriations, was on the Hill the day the healthcare bill passed, advised him on every vote, was at LA, but the low man on the totem pole for sure. And my second year, one of the people in my office had clerked for Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor. And they told me that they thought that I would make a good attorney. That honestly was the first time I thought about being an attorney or actually pursuing it for real. I had thought about it, but I hadn't really thought about I hadn't envisioned myself in it. I then went, there was a Judge Lee who sits in the federal court in Arlington. I had a relationship with the Just the Beginning Foundation, which I know you sit on the board of. And he used to do an internship, but he also used to take people in just to see the courthouse. And so I went with him, had lunch. I said, man, I could do this. Anyway, long story short is that's how I came to the law, is that I sort of, all of those things. And, I believe that nothing happens by happenstance, sort of led me to this career. And ever since then, I've been chugging away at it.
So, as a young lawyer, what is the most important characteristic of a young person that says they want to practice law?
You gotta have tough skin. You have to have a no quit mentality. You have to go, and this is real, and I think we should say it. I think we'd be doing disservice, and Kevin, I've learned this from you. If you are a woman or any type of person of color, particularly a Black man, I can speak for myself, you have to be willing to go the extra mile. There are days where you have to say, you know what, I could turn this into a client, and my peer might turn this into a client, but you got to spend that extra 30 minutes where you really don't want to do it on your craft. You just got to have grit. And nobody wants to hear you complain. Nobody wants to hear you talk about the hours. I think people like the idea of being an attorney, but people wonder why most attorneys say don't enter the practice. It's because most of those people are still practicing. A lot of them are very good at what they do, and they understand the commitment it takes. So if you enter the legal field, you just need to have a no quit attitude.
So I want to emphasize something. Those are the entry characteristics. What
Right.
does it take to be successful and become a partner? Like, what in your mind, what do you have to exhibit to take those entry level requirements and then go to the next level to become a
Well,
partner?
then you got to build. Then you got to build. I think you got to build relationships. So I'm in this process right now, right, Kevin? Me and you talk about this all the time. You got to build relationships. You have to exhibit an ability. We're talking about leadership. You got to be able to manage a team. You got to understand that me and you both know attorneys that are no longer at firms because they don't know how to manage people. Brilliant attorneys that don't know how to manage people. You got to learn how. It's all of the skills that you should have learned before. I'll tell you the biggest one though. The most effective leaders that I've seen in a firm environment treat everybody the same. The ones that can bring in clients are the ones that when you walk in the office, and you will know them in any business environment, are the ones that when they walk in the door, the person at the front desk, the janitor, everybody smiles, they say hello, and they get a hello back. Because those are the people that command respect. Because really, at a certain point, we're all human. So nobody's going to listen to you if you don't show respect to them. Not in the long term. People are going to get fed up about it. So I think that's crucial too. And then, let's be real about it, Kevin. Dollars and numbers speak. so you gotta be able to bring value. If you don't bring value, at some point, things are going to shift. So the biggest one, obviously, is make sure you are a valuable asset to your place and your business, particularly in the practice of law. And then I think the other thing is show everybody respect.
And so you see a young lawyer that exhibits some of these characteristics and qualities, and they want you to invest in them and sort of mentor them. What is it that they can do to sort of attract your attention so you say, okay, I want to spend my time investing in that person? And then for people that you have mentored, what are some of the cool things they've done to contribute to the relationship that's sort of benefiting you?
So the first question, I look for people that have grit. So there's I give you two examples today. I'm working with Kevin, him, Javaris Gresham, but I also work with a woman by the name of Lindsay McCall. And I invest in them because A, they're incredibly smart. B, they want it, right? You can see it, you can feel it. And C, they're going to be honest and committed to what we're trying to do. And so for me, those are the big things. If you're somebody who I think is a good person, you work hard, and you're loyal, then I owe you that back. If you are in it for yourself, me and you aren't going to hit it off. That's just not my. Some people can deal with that and play that and use that to their advantage. That's not how. That's never how I sort of get down with the people I work for, or vice versa.
And then on the second part of the question, and I'll give you an example. When I was an associate, I hadn't made partner yet. My mentor and sponsor over at A&B was looking for a wedding anniversary gift for his wife, and he was looking at buying a Jeep Wrangler for their wedding anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew he wasn't the most technologically savvy. And so I just started looking at ways like online to help him find this specific. He told me what he wanted, and I went and found him one on the internet. And
Right.
so he was so excited. It took me like a few minutes, but I was able to find this Jeep that he wanted. It saved him like $5,000 or $6,000. Took me a couple minutes, made his day. Like those are things that I think mentees can contribute to sort of their relationship to help that mentor in their everyday activities, their practice, whatever. What have you seen from mentees that have sort of been similar to that, where you're like, wow, I didn't expect that, and it just made you grow closer to the mentee?
Yeah. It's little things. I mean, it's interesting you bring it up because I think that is one of the things also, Kevin, you can speak to this in terms of business development. It's the same way. It's figuring out the things that you can do to make somebody's life easier. So I'll give you an example. There are instances that are practical where there'll be a case that maybe somebody I'm working with isn't even on, but they've looked at the case and they're like, hey, I saw this over here. Do you need help here? I know this deadline's coming up. I know you're busy. It's going out of your way to do things you don't have to make somebody's life easier. That's what I think any relationship is about, right? I mean, nobody is. We all are busy people, and you asked the question about how do you develop mentors. That's the way you do it, because you gotta build some rapport, but you also gotta figure out some shared value. And as a somebody who's been the mentee, you oftentimes it's not even, right? You can't give them the same thing that they might be able to give you from a value perspective. So you got to create that value.
So, as you know, we all have gone through this pandemic. It's been super challenging for everybody, society, the business world. What have been some of the challenges that you've seen from a practice perspective from the pandemic? And then also leading the Emerging 100 through this pandemic where we can't get together, we can't do the things that we used to do in person. Like, what are some of those challenges that you've seen?
The practice is simple. Courts have been, I mean, I'm a litigation and trial attorney. Courts have really been at a standstill because you can't get in for jury trials. It's hard for those people working in the court to really move as quickly as they would like. So the practice has sort of been, now it's heating up. So things have gotten crazy recently. But during the pandemic, while some things were moving, for the most part, I feel like there's going to be an avalanche of cases coming down now because we've sort of been in this waiting pattern where people don't know when things are going to get resolved and when things are going to happen. The emerging is easy. We brought in essentially two new classes of members. So that's, if my math is correct, something like 51 members, Kevin. And the first class came in when we had a pandemic a few months later. We brought in the class during the pandemic. Unless they are outside with like 6 of them socially distanced, we can't do the service work that we want to do. And so to my point, from a cultural perspective, it's important on any team that people know, and creating that rapport is very difficult on a screen. It's just, people are zoomed out. You can only do so much. Let's drink wine together and look at each other through a computer screen before it gets old. And so that's been one of the challenges. And then I'll tell you the biggest one is we mentor. That's our main thing. We mentor young men and women who are trying to do better things with their life. It is very hard to mentor when you don't have somebody, you're not in that physical presence, because you can't engage them the same way. And so that's been a challenge. We tried to work around it, but it's just it's a difficulty.
So, what are the positives that we will take away from the pandemic? What are things, new habits that we've learned, new tools that have been developed that we think will outlast the pandemic and be productive for us in the practice and in the emerging?
Yeah, technology, the ability now where I don't necessarily have to get on a plane and go see a client, where I don't need to drive across town to handle a meeting that probably would be good if people see each other face to face. That's crucial. The big one for me is an understanding of what it is and what it means to be still. I mean, I think that's crucial, man. I just I have not had an opportunity to understand how important it is, not just for me, but others, to be still and understand what that is. And so I think those are big takeaways.
And we talked about the obstacles thrown in our way from the pandemic. Let's just take a step back and say generally, like I like to share with our audience, like what are some of the challenges that these great leaders that I've talked to had to overcome to let people know it won't be easy and there are things that'll be thrown your way that you had to fight through, but you can still be successful. So like what's an obstacle or two that you had to overcome professionally or personally along your sort of career path and journey?
Sure, I give you two. Let's start with the emergent. You know, we have a gala every year uh, around April and May. It's a scholarship gala. Actually, Kevin, you were the person who started us off with that. And we always do that in person. It was the Delta Flight Museum. Obviously, Delta used a facility that we oftentimes use as a space because they had to bring employees over there. So we couldn't do the gala. We had to pivot in literally a month to do a virtual gala. And I think we did one of the first virtual galas, to my understanding, that I've seen. And so we did that. And then professionally, it's very difficult in what I do to be able to conduct depositions, manage a caseload, make sure that you're active in cases when you can't interact with people. But you got to make it happen. And I guess that's my point, Kevin, is, you know, you asked, what would you tell somebody interested in the law? At some point, excuses go out the window. I think that's one of the valuable things about leadership. Excuses go out the window. If I got a client and a client is getting sued and they say, I need this to go away or we need to resolve this, that client is not trying to hear, well, listen, man, my day to day has really been messed up. And my daughters, you know, because they're not hearing that, unfortunately. So I got to figure out a way to make it happen. And that's the big thing for me is I think, you know, I really think, and I've learned there are people that talk about, oh, I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z. And then there are people that want to go and say, oh, I'm going to make this happen. And I'm really attracted to whether they are people that are mentees or people that are mentors, those that say, you know what, I don't care. I want this. I'm going to make it happen. And just are constantly day to day following that process.
On the career journey, are there any sort of lessons that you learn at different firms or in your practice where there was a moment where you kind of just put your hands in your head like, oh man, this may not be for me? And what lesson did you learn to help you sort of get through those moments or push through those moments?
So when I clerked for Judge Sands, who was the first black federal judge in the Middle District of Georgia. I used to have this tendency to be like, man, and this sometimes is inherent with attorneys. I would be like, man, this is about to be a horrible 2-3 weeks, you know, because it's the realist in me, right? I'm like, there's no way this could be good. And what he said is, he's like, what does it cost you to just be optimistic? He's like, even if it is all bad, why don't you at least go in there with a mindset that it's going to be better? That was one. Let me tell you another one that was really important for me was being okay with not getting everything done in one day and having those moments where you just like, this isn't all going to get done. Let me get the mandatory stuff done and try to do better. That's why I said I did take it day by day now, because I remember as a young attorney being in the car driving the best with you, stressed out, and Gooch has to turn on the gospel music because a brother needs some gospel music to relax because you're so stressed out about all of these pressures you're putting on yourself that nobody else is.
So let's take a step back on the leadership from a leadership perspective. Tell us, what is your leadership philosophy? Sort of what's your North Star when it comes to leadership, right? You have servant leaders, you have leaders that focus primarily on developing the pipeline and the team that comes behind them. You have leaders that focus solely on delivering results. Like, what is sort of your leadership philosophy and your North Star when it comes to leadership?
Uh, my North Star is, as a leader, what I want to do is lead so well that others can see what the strengths they have are. That's my North Star. I feel like if I'm leading, and frankly, it's being confident enough in the decisions I'm making where I know that decisions are for the best and the greater good, regardless. So you're never going to please everybody. And I've watched this, right? This is something I've observed, frankly, Kevin, from you and other leaders. You're not going to please everybody. You make a call, and then you go in there every day and you try to the best of your ability represent what you think at that time. And I'm a human being, but what you think at that time represents strong leadership, and leave it at that. But to me, the real test of a leader, the measure, right? The measurement is when you leave a situation, are the people that you work with and that you've invested that time in, have they cultivated their leadership skills so they can move it forward? That to me is my barometer. That's how I measure things. With the emerging, it's the same way. I look at it and say, if I got 5 brothers in the emerging that are better leaders today than they were before, and it's not just me, this has been the whole exec board, Greg Davis, Kristen Wright, Donald Washington, Kyle Walcott. Our main thing was we want to have a culture where we're developing leaders in whatever their space is. So if you do one thing, I want you to be a leader in it. That's my barometer. That's sort of my North Star, is I want you to leave, I don't know if people do it, but a while ago I did like a mission statement in the program that both of us participated in. And part of that mission statement is to leave situations where you feel like others are seeing the power that they have.
That's deep. You mentioned earlier your time on Capitol Hill, and you mentioned your time with Governor Patrick. Little known fact, you were on Capitol Hill and actually worked alongside now Senator John Ossoff.
That's right.
And you worked with Senator Markey from Massachusetts, right?
That's right.
So
yeah.
What role did your time working alongside these great leaders on Capitol Hill and working alongside Governor Patrick, what role did those experiences play in your development as a leader?
Oh man, it was crazy. So they were all different. So now Senator Ossoff, I've known him since like middle school. So that is a different relationship in the sense that I've seen him as a peer, but he's always been smart. He's always been engaged, and we've always had a passion for just talking about policy. And so I know that this isn't just something he saw TV and wanted to do. This is something he's been passionate about. He worked for Congressman Johnson at the time when I was working for then Congressman Markey, and they were both in the Rayburn building. But with Governor Patrick, I got to see somebody who literally built something from scratch. It was the first time in my life, Kevin, I'll tell you, that I saw a Black man that was running for office in a majority white state that unapologetically told his story to the public, right? And what I took from that is, if you're good at what you do, if you're sincere, you just come as, and it's been reaffirmed to me throughout, you just come as you are. So that's really what I took from from Governor Patrick. I sometimes call him Devon slip up, but that's what I took from Governor Patrick was come as you are, be forthright, don't apologize for who you are, and just try to do good work. And I think he did a great job as governor, and thankful for the opportunity I had with him. With Senator Markey, he had been in Capitol Hill since he was 30 years old. So when I got there, he had already been in the House of Representatives something like 20 plus years. He was second in command on Energy and Commerce, which, for those that don't know, does on the House side does telecom and they do healthcare, and so they do the energy and environment work. He was the '94 Telecom Act bill he passed. What I took from him, in addition to sort of being around him day to day and talking basketball and all of those, he's a huge Celtics fan, is the ability to understand how to be right too early. He always said, man, I'm just right too early. And we would lose a lot of fights, but we would win a lot. And I'll tell you, that was the first time we're talking about climate. That's the first time that a climate bill passed the House of Representatives when I was there. And I learned from him, you have to know how to push for something, but you also need to know how to make a deal when it comes up. And so literally 3 years, I got to see him. I mean, there are crazy stories. I mean, I got to see passion. I think I've told you this, Kevin. One of the things I will never forget is when Ted Kennedy, before he passed, there was an immigration bill that hit the House of Representatives and then went over to the Senate. That day, there was a delegation meeting for all of the reps in Massachusetts. And the immigration bill that day it was done, right? Everybody that was going to support it pulled out. Mitt Romney was concluding his term as then governor of Massachusetts. And I remember, and this is stuff they don't tell you, Mitt Romney got up. Normally the governor sits at the head of the table, got up, said, no, you got my seat. Okay, he's already thinking about running for president. But the thing I remember is that Ted Kennedy was on the verge of tears, man. I lie to you not about that bill not passing. And being able to see that passion was what I took from that experience. Is, there are some, we all know them, there are some politicians out here that you can't listen to for half a second. But there are some people in all fields that are passionate. And, I was like, man, I want to be as passionate about things as Ted Kennedy was when he didn't have to be. I mean, he's Ted Kennedy. They've been in the Senate forever. And so that's what I took from the Hill and Ed. I mean, Ed is still one of the more passionate people that I've seen.
Any books that stand out to you as helping to color your views on leadership?
Oh, man. There's so many, man. I'm trying to just one or two. Okay. I just Vernon can read, which is timely. It's about Vernon Jordan. Really good book. I actually finished it. It was odd. I finished it right before. So I'm gonna do the books that I just finished. That book is, to me, he talks about how he used to work for Mr. Maddox, who were here in Georgia. He actually owned what is now the governor's mansion prior to it. Vernon Jordan was his chauffeur. And it was his summer job. And he was shocked that Vernon Jordan could read. And so that talks about, it goes up to like his ascendancy up to the 80s. So it doesn't even tell the full story. But it gives you a process of how to negotiate and leverage opportunities. And I like bios. I like to see how people move. And I'll tell you the other one that's not a bio. There's a book by Matt Bayerson called The Circle Maker, which I love. It's one of my favorite books. It's a little bit spiritually driven, but it's about faith, and it's about the story of literally circling whatever you want to happen and being persistent. So it's Matt Bayerson and Circle Maker. Those are two books that I think apply to leadership, because you got to be focused. You can't focus on everything. You got to say 1, 2, 3. Let's move forward on it.
So people have heard me say this often, right? I believe that leadership is a willingness to fail publicly, right? There's risk around it, because when you lead, you're out front. And if things go wrong, you got to take all that incoming fire and all of that heat. And so leading a bunch of alpha personalities in the emerging 100 has to be a challenge. So
That's
what
something.
sort of motivates you to deal with the daily grind of being a leader and managing that heat when it comes to your role as a leader?
As bad as it sounds, I, I, it might sound bad. Honestly, I don't feel any heat because if I make a decision that I think is thoughtful and I think is respectful of all parties there, then I'm gonna make the decision. I got voted into. I mean, I got voted into the post as president um, because I think people believed in my judgment. They knew I would be respectful. Um, with alpha personalities, I think the main thing you got to do is figure out what is their alpha and try to put them in a position where they feel like they have autonomy and they can do their own thing, but it has to be in accord with the mission of the organization. Um, I don't view my role as trying to please everybody. Like I said, I don't view my role as trying to please everybody. Other people have different approaches to leadership. So that could be effective for some people. It just isn't effective for me because I think that when people ask you to lead an organization or they want to ask you to lead something, they want you to create a mission and a vision. And it is your job to stress that, but work with them to sort of propel it. And so some of the alphas that we have in the emergence, we have no problem because they're like, you know what? I see your mission. Here's what I can do. I'm going to run my race. Others uh, have an issue with it, I think, because frankly, they have an issue um, because we don't have a shared vision. My job as a leader is to try to continue to reiterate that shared vision, but sometimes you don't agree with everybody.
In these talks, I like to get into sort of the nuts and bolts of leadership because I feel like that's the challenge and that's what makes people shy away from leadership.
Yeah.
So, how do you deal with difficult conversations and difficult people?
Uh, the my approach is I never reach out to somebody when I'm all the way hot. If I'm really upset about something, I am normally going to call some confidants that I have to sort of air it out and hear their perspective that can be honest with me. And then I'm going to be very candid and honest about the situation as I view it without telling them what the situation is. Um, and then at some point, the conversation is because I think you owe everybody honesty and you owe everybody an opportunity to be heard. So after I give my perspective, I'll hear their perspective and I take it from there. But for me, it's being completely frank. I'm not raising my voice with you. If you raise your voice at me, then it's going to be a whole different conversation. Oftentimes, I want to pull myself out of the situation because I'm going to say this isn't productive. But I'm going to be I'm going to be very candid. I'm going to tell you sort of where I stand on it, but I'm going to allow for you to be heard. And that's where I think people mess up. And you know this, Kevin, the biggest thing is a lot of times you can settle a situation if the other side feels like they're heard.
So when you're leading and you have someone that's not performing at their full potential, how do you motivate them or sort of spark that fire under them?
Just find their strengths. I mean, a lot of times, I mean, I've been there. I mean, anybody that tells you that they've been perfect their entire life is lying to you. And so I think you owe it to someone, if you see their strengths, to be like, this is where I think you're strong. I liken it to the sandwich method, right? Do good, then put the constructive feedback in the middle, and then give them some affirmation. I mean, we're not in the business. I'm not in the business of trying to tear anybody down. Life will do that on its own. So that's my approach. Good. I try to always, if I have anything positive and I see a strength, and there's rarely been an instance where I don't have this. I try to look at what is the strengths that person has. Let me give them some confidence on both ends, and then give the constructive feedback.
Someone wants to be the next Mitch Robinson. What would you tell a college student that said, I love you, I love what you've been able to accomplish, I want to do similar or better things? What
They're
advice would you
crazy.
give a college
I
student?
tell them they're crazy, Gooch. I tell them they're crazy. But if they wanted to be, I mean, you shouldn't want to be like anybody else. You should want to be a one of one. So I would say, listen, I did write down on a piece of paper 5 people that you look up to that you think are valuable in your life, and say, I like attributes about that person. And then figure out how you can be a one-of-one. I mean, I think people are drawn to authenticity. But what I would say, I mean, I hope the attribute that people take from me is that I always try to, as a leader, be fair. I think if you are fair and you always understand that we are people that have good days and bad days, and you approach leading like that, you'll be fine.
And I can attest to also your authenticity and integrity as a leader. So I think those things are valuable, and you exhibit those as well. What has been your most awe-inspiring moment as a leader?
Uh,
What has happened when you were like, man, I can't believe that just happened? That was pretty cool.
um, that's a hard one, man. Um, there's so many, man. There are things like, I'll give you an example. We had to get we had a licensing issue, and it was impossible. The chances of us getting it, Kevin, you remember because I was calling you, and you were like, only because it's you, and we're gonna get this done, and we got it done. But then there's also obviously the giving out of scholarships. Every year, I'm amazed by that. Right, the fact that a bunch of young professionals who are developing in their careers and making vastly, across the board in terms of how much they are making at that moment, can put their minds together and give out scholarships of the size that we've given out scholarships. We've now given over $250,000 plus of scholarships in the Immersion 100. Those are the awe-inspiring moments.
So you're proud of those moments. What's a moment that you wish you had back to do it over again? That you might be
how many you want? How many do you want me to go through? I wish, I think we have done a good job, but I really wish I could get back those first moments when we bring in a new class. I felt like the intentionality around that. It's very hard when you're doing so much to integrate people, but I wish I could get back that first opportunity to really engage the new brothers that we bring in. I wish we could, there's some things I wish I could have done more, Kevin, with you around the mentoring piece with the 100, because y'all have such dynamic and powerful leaders over there to really cultivate that. And I think we're still going to do it, but really to launch it where now it's something that can be sustained.
What do you want your legacy to be as a leader and sort of as a person?
I want when I got a lot more life to live, but like I want 30, 40 years from now, people to say, you know what, that was, and that sort of goes back to before, Mitch was an exceptional leader, but he also was somebody that helped me become a leader or helped me excel at whatever my strength is. Because see, I actually view it, I think everybody has a strength. I don't think everybody's a leader. I think people need to recognize where they can lead. And I don't think everybody can be a leader in every space, but I do think there's a strength that everyone has. And so I want people to say, you know what, if it wasn't for Mitch helping me get there, I wouldn't have been there. So that's why I brought up, at the start of this, Gooch, that instance in the car, because, and I appreciate you doing these, that's what mentorship is, man. It's the small things when your mentee is literally off the rails and has a perspective and a mindset on life that you just got to be like, you got to play whatever your gospel music of the time or whatever your soft, smooth jazz or rap is at the time and say, listen, man, you can actually make this happen, but you got to get out your own head. And so I want to be that for other people in the sense that I want people to say, you know what, he helped me along my way of being better, whatever that is.
I remember those conversations of being like, don't turn over the desk and don't jump off the ledge. I remember clearly.
Yeah.
So what's next for you?
Obviously I'm still going to be involved with the Emerging 100. I'm a trustee over at Impact Church, man, but I'm just going to really sit back. I think one of the important things that I've learned about being in leadership is sometimes you need to know when you need to follow. And so I'm going to sit back and for a little bit, just really try to follow and be a member, trying to lead with the collective in a different capacity. And obviously focus on this work, Gooch, just try to make that happen.
All right, brother. This has been great. We have one question from the audience, which is actually from your vice president, Kyle Walcott.
Okay, here you go.
I'm going to distill it down. So the basic question is, how do you see the emerging in the 100 becoming more instrumental in advancing the city and impacting the community?
That was the short version of it.
Yeah.
I think we just need to follow our mission. I mean, I think we get a lot of what makes the 100 Black men in the Emerging 100 unique is that there are very few organizations out there that really support young men and young women from the time they're in literally middle school all the way through. So a success story for us looks different. It looks like taking somebody, whether they're over at Bankhead or another small school, and helping them transition to a point where they're part of the 100 Black men, and who knows, or they are ascending as a young woman to be CEO of a company, and then having them repeat the same pattern. And so sort of what I think we can do next is just get better at what our mission is. We need to mentor better. We need to make sure we're serving and meeting people where they are better. And we need to be making sure that we are cultivating relationships amongst the emerging and the 100.
I mean, and I'll go further and say, Kyle, that's your job, sir.
Yep.
You're up next. No, but in all seriousness, I will add to that is that, we definitely have laid a foundation during our terms of leadership that our next leaders can take the mantle and carry it even further, right? I'm excited for what our next chairman, Keith Milner, will be able to do with the organization. I'm sure you're excited with what Kyle will be able to do with the organization. But I think from my perspective, being innovative, not being locked into the sort of shackles of the past. And so being able to think outside the box and having the courage to push things that people may not have pushed in the past. And then, keeping your heart and your North Star being, how do you change people's lives and improve their lives? And if you are focused on changing and improving lives of those people that we serve, and you're willing to think outside of the box and be innovative and creative and courageous, then you'll move the agenda forward for our community and for our organization. We had our first 100 Day of the Capitol, which you all were instrumental in, the collegiate was instrumental in, and just thinking of activities like that. I mean, to have the governor, the lieutenant governor, the dean of the House, the head of the Legislative Black Caucus show up to talk to us, the 100 and the emerging and the collegiate, was powerful. And so taking those things and leveraging them to the future, having the head of the Fulton County Commission, the superintendent of schools, folks from City Hall come speak to us. It was just a great day. And so leveraging these things that we've been able to put in place and then taking them to the next level. So I think we're on the right path.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I'll be remiss, Gooch, I think you deserve a lot of credit for that. I think we have built a really good relationship between the emerging and the 100. And I think finally we've created a synergy that I hope that the president-elect of the emerging and I know that the chair-elect of the 100 will continue, which is making sure that we have a shared mission here. And we are a pipeline mentorship organization. And so if we remind ourselves that the real goal is to try to make sure we're keeping that pipeline as tight as possible and expanding it, we'll be good.
Yeah, and the goal was always just find as many touch points as possible because that makes it sticky. At some point, some of those touch points will stick, and then you just grow from there. So this has been a great conversation. I'm very proud of you, sir, and happy to see you.
I appreciate it,
doing your thing and being successful, and I look forward to great things ahead for you. and for everything that you touch. And appreciate your time today, and appreciate all you've done for the organization and all that you will continue to do for the organization. So thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Sentiment is the same. You talking like you an old man, Gooch. You still got some youth under you, man. You got a long way as well. So great job as chair. I know your term is ending. Thank you for the opportunity here to just chat. And it's been a pleasure working with you, man.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
All right.